To call the October 25th meeting to order at 7:05, if they could please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we did the artwork last week, so we're all good with that. Google agenda, I don't think we're moving anything, so we can jump to, I'll entertain a motion to approve the October 11th.
Jake Murray moved to approve the October 11th meeting minutes.
Seconded.
Yeah, anyone have any questions or questions? We'll go see it online.
Oh, yeah, Dina
Dina
will be on my.
And Ford, okay. So if you ladies don't have any questions, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Start with Jaden.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Dana.
Say hello.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Aye as well, therefore the minutes are approved as is. At this time, we will open up for public participation. If any member online would like to speak, you'll be allotted 2 minutes to do so. If you could please raise your hand, I will call upon you, and if you could, just list your name and address for the record. I don't think there's anyone raising a hand. So going once, going twice. We will close out the public participation and we will jump to correspondence.
Okay, since the last meeting, we had one email suggesting that the district should participate in a snowplow naming contest. That's it for correspondence.
Okay, thank you. Points of information. So at this time, if any member of the board would like to have something to say, please raise your hand. And
Just say I'm fully on board with that, by the way, so let's do it. That's nothing serious.
I had a question. I had a resident mention to me, I'm just trying to find the message. There's like a cap on parent-teacher conferences at the middle school. This cap is, you said it's capped at like 38 people per school. I'm just kind of wondering, is that correct? And what might be the reason for that?
Well, there's 76 because it's 38 per team,
Okay.
and it's double what they had last year. So in short, K-5 generally at the elementary and early elementary level, they have historically offered, opened it up because a typical K-5 teacher might have 26 kids. When you get to the high school and you get to middle school, high school, you have maybe 100, so 5 sections of kids.
Mm-hmm.
So, and at that level, they're not always that interested in having sometimes they are, but historically there hasn't been that much interest in it. To get at the middle school level, they would typically send out notification to kids that had the highest need. And then they would also put out there that, if anybody wanted it, they could reach out and get it. So historically, they did it that way and they had a certain number of slots. They doubled the number of slots for this year, to Ms. Hickey's credit. And I think they'll continue in that vein to continue to expand it. But they doubled it from last year to this year. And the unique aspect of the middle school schedule and structure is that because of the team structure, they can offer these parent-teacher conferences almost any time the parents want it. So in the K-5 level, it's a little harder to do that, but they have team time where they can invite in and have the parents come in. So usually in the middle school level, when a parent wants a meeting, they're able to meet with the entire team, all of the teachers all at once. And they generally can schedule that almost any time. So because they've had that structure and they've had that ability and freedom to get all the teachers in place at one time, almost any time, not just during parent-teacher conferences, they've had more flexibility overall to do that. So they've had more flexibility overall to do it, now and in the past, but they've also doubled the number of conferences they've had, historically this year from the past. And they'll continue to work in that vein.
Okay. I think it's good that parents, I just kind of feel like, parents should definitely have that opportunity. I was just a little concerned that there was the cap, I don't know, was there did you hit that ceiling like last year? Were there?
It's just the number of slots available in the time. So they even took those teams and split them to be able to offer more. But usually they have the entire team. So there's only that many time slots available where they can meet with those groups of people. You know, so if they can split it out to one teacher, they can expand it even to even more slots. And they may do that in the future. But the advantage of the middle school structure at the time was that you could meet everyone, all the teachers on team in the past. So they split it to be able to double the number of slots. But aside from all of that, one of the unique pieces of that teaming structure in middle school is that you can sit down with the entire team almost any time of the year. So when a parent wants to meet, they're never barred from meeting with the team, and you can meet with the entire team all at once, which is not as easy to do in other schools. So there's never a time when a parent will be told the team will not be with them. It just so happens that they have more flexibility than most of the other schools do. So for all intents and purposes, there could be a parent-teacher conference almost any time at the middle school during the year, and they would have access to the entire team, which is not always the case in other schools. So that's why historically, because it could be offered at almost any time, they focused the attention on students that were in the greatest need, and then they opened it up to those, you know, in that parent-teacher conference day that were above and beyond that. And then beyond that, they offered up almost any time to meet with parent guardians throughout the entire year. And it usually will do that at the parents, you know, they'll work with the parents to find the data first and they can come. You know. So it's actually more flexible at the middle school than most of the other schools. But to answer that directly, they doubled the number of times they've had last year, and they generally won't, they'll never turn a parent guardian away when they meet the full team. They have that flexibility all along.
Oh. I got a couple more questions, but I'll follow up with you later because might take a while.
Sure, yeah, sure, of course.
Any other board members at this time? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to our student representatives.
Okay, so last Saturday we had our homecoming and attendance was overall, I would say it was very good. But one problem was that many people like took pictures and then left early. So student council were coming up with a way to keep people until the end of the night. So we're thinking for next year, it might be shortened from 7 to 10 to 7 to 9:30. And classes might sponsor like gift baskets or raffles that could be announced at the end of the night. And we're also thinking of maybe adding a homecoming court where people volunteer and then vote for who they want to be in homecoming court, and then that will be revealed at the end of the night, just so that people will like stay till the end.
Last week was also Spirit Week and our Eagle Rally. So some of the things that student council noticed was there was a big problem with people signing for pep rally games. Not enough people were doing it. We weren't getting enough participation, so it made some things a little bit awkward. So next year we may implement a point system to that and hand out prizes to winners. And additionally, although there's more people that are dressing on theme this year than in the past, we still have a little bit of a problem with people not dressing on theme for the themed days. So we're creating a competition where first block teachers might count how many people from each grade are in theme, and the grade with the most spirit and theme will win some sort of trophy. And this will give a clear winner, which some of our competitions don't give a clear winner. So we'll get a clear winner, and it'll make people more inclined to dress for the days and participate in our games.
Also, NHS peer tutoring, I heard it.
Also, the school play this year in the spring will be the Hunchback of Notre Dame. And I think they've already met, but if anyone was interested, they can meet with Mr. Fields. I think it was Wednesday.
And the Tolland Ski and Snowboarding Club will have their first trip starting Tuesday. They leave at 2 p.m. and will come back at 8:30.
All right. I'm on the big guns, guys. DECA. Okay. So next week, we start our 2 long community service project with Operation Gratitude. And through this, we will be donating money and a Beanie Baby drive to veterans, veteran families, military families, and first responders. We're going to be collecting monetary donations during the high school lunch waves. And if you donate $5, you get to fill out an honor ribbon with the name of a loved veteran or a loved military member that we will create into an honor ball that will be presented during our assembly on the Thursday before Veterans Day. And throughout all of the schools and Tolland Public Library, we will be having a Beanie Baby drive. So teachers, students, parents, and any community member can drop off Beanie Babies, webkins, or other small plush toys that are new or like new. And these Beanie Babies will go to active military members or military families. And additionally, with the monetary funds, we will be creating mini care packages with a lot of essentials that we'll be sending to to military members overseas. So this is a really, really great charity that we're working with. It starts on October 30th. It goes until November 9th. And we really want people to participate and donate and give money so that we can help this amazing cause. Any questions?
It's great.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we will move on to the MET presentation.
So we're very fortunate tonight to have Jenna Webster with us, who's the curriculum supervisor for Matt. It's very exciting. It's an awesome presentation. A lot of really, to her credit, she's made a lot of progress in the district. As you'll see some of the data here that shows the math scores have jumped up. I think in grades 2 and 3, they've jumped up by factors of 17 and 20 plus points. And I can't say enough about how awesome Ms. Webster has done for the district and kids and help the kids in their learning. And that's not just, that's just the tip of the iceberg, because the programs that she's brought in and curated for us, the training that she's done for PD, she's done amazing things. So without further ado, I'd like to present Ms. Webster, come on up, and you know what I can do is I'll stand.
You don't have to, it's okay.
Or I
Don't
can
mind
do your clicker.
standing.
Now here's your presentation.
You can have a chair.
And then I don't know if people at home can see this, but when I press the slideshow, hopefully you'll all be able to see it at home. I know we will be able to see it. So.
I can see the slideshow.
And if you click on it, yeah. So that,
All right.
take the home here.
Oh, cool.
Be careful, don't touch that one.
I will not, which mouse is the correct mouse?
This one is your mouse.
Okay, will not touch all,
Another
anything else.
mouse. one is that
Promise, I'm just gonna use the keyboard. Hi, I'm Jen Webster. I'm the math supervisor for the district. I really appreciate your time tonight, and I'm super excited to come here and talk about math. It is my favorite all-time thing to talk about. So if I get sidetracked, please reel me back in, because we could talk about stellated octahedrons and building thinking classrooms and getting kids to feel like mathematicians for your whole entire meeting. So I'm really excited to be here today. That's my contact information if you ever need me, or if you have any additional questions. Or you want to know. Oh, there we go. So we've had a lot of great programs implemented in the district. Pre-K to 5, we've started, we're in year 3 of Bridges, and I'm going to talk through that first slide as we look at some images of our teachers and our students engaging in that work. So pre-K through 5, we've been using Bridges. Bridges has multiple components, including Number Corner, which is essentially a calendar routine where students are looking at patterns, their spiraled concepts throughout the whole year. So for example, in 5th grade, they start with volume, so they can really see that work all throughout the year. They talk about different patterning throughout the calendar, and each month has a different theme in each grade level. Kids are highly engaged in Number Corner. It should only be 20 minutes. If you peruse their classrooms, teachers have a hard time stopping at 20. Students are really, you can see in that middle picture, taking the lead early on in the school year, learning the routines and actually facilitating some of those routines during Number Corner. In addition, there's workplaces, which is the gamified version of practice. Kids are using their skills that they're learning throughout the Bridges lessons that are all inquiry-based and student-centered to practice with each other. There's different scaffolded games and lessons so that students who need more of a challenge are getting more challenging games,
or a different grade level of games, and kids who need support, there's built-in intervention lessons that our interventionists at both at Birch and TIS also use to support our tiered instruction. You can also see throughout some of these images, for example, in the bottom left, there's dot cards with 10 frames. Dr. Willet's favorite is a Rec and Rec. I'm not sure if there's a picture up there of one, but really focusing on using tools and strategies to build mathematical reasoning, not just memorizing a routine of how to add or subtract, but why does adding and subtracting work? And what does that truly mean to combine numbers or break numbers or apart and build that conceptual reasoning of math rather than just memorizing steps. We've seen a real uptick in our fluency and our SBAC data since we've implemented. I'm going to talk about that after we get through 6-8. And 6 through 12, really, we've seen a lot of implementation of building thinking classrooms through illustrative math and Desmos, which is our primary resource. We take a balanced approach at the middle school in balancing illustrative math, which is mainly paper-based, and Desmos, which is an online resource curriculum that merges with illustrative math. And the reason why we do that is it builds more of an experience for students to be able to actually touch and manipulate their math through the online component. Desmos is also the integrated calculator and at function in SBAC and the SAT. So by incorporating it in our curriculum and our kids have regular access to it, they are practicing things that they will need to know on some of those state exams. Last year, we did a book study with building thinking classrooms. It's a book about 14 practices of new research that shows how we can engage students to be thinkers, not mimicking other people or really engaging in reasoning and thinking and being very student-centered. So you'll see a lot in these pictures. The result of that, the middle school really was heavily involved in building thinking classrooms, even though we did talk about it K-12. You'll see here toolkit 1 of the 4 toolkits. You're really talking about randomized grouping so that kids get new pairs to people to work with and collaborate with in each lesson. Non-permanent vertical spaces. I know that's a lot. We call them. You'll see people standing at different whiteboards throughout the classroom in small groups. So those small groups are randomized. Kids are sharing a marker to share the reasoning. So if we were in a group together and I had the marker, I'm not allowed to write my own thoughts. I have to write your thoughts. You have to explain them to me. And then we trade. And then you write down my thoughts, and it builds that student discourse, it builds that student confidence, it builds that collaboration between group members. And then the next day, I already worked with you, I might get paired with you, or with you. And so it builds that confidence and builds a camaraderie environment of mathematical thinking and reasoning within the classroom. And that's just toolkit 1. There's a lot of other different components of it, and our middle school teachers have really taken the initiative to build this into what they do in their classrooms, and kids are really thriving in it. And that we'll talk a little bit later this year at the high school, they're going to be doing part of a book study as well as a whole math department, reading the first section, toolkit 1 of building thinking classrooms, and talking about and planning of how to implement some of those practices in semester 2 to start to look at shifting some of our instructional practices to really build students as mathematicians, mathematical reasoning, and shift some of our practices of the high school instruction. Now to the good stuff. So touch extra things. I was afraid.
You've been feeling great, so this is great you're touching it.
So I am thrilled.
All right, go back.
I am thrilled to talk to you about our SBAC data for math for the 22-23 school year. It is the highest percentage of students who achieved a 3 and a 4 in the history of Tolland Public Schools taking SBAC. And the next slide is just a table version of this graph, but we have not only recovered from COVID, but we've surpassed it, even surpassed pre-COVID numbers. And you can see in the table, we have outsurpassed 15-16 is the first year that Tolland has taken it, and we've outsurpassed that just by a margin, but still surpassed it. So we've really come out of COVID, our programming K-5 and 6-8 have really supported our students as mathematical thinkers and being able to really dive into some really meaty problems that they see on those assessments and have the confidence as a mathematician to grapple with them and be very successful. In addition to that, at our middle school, we started with a concept called co-teaching. The co-taught classes at our middle school are a general education teacher and a special ed teacher paired together. It's providing students who are in need of some extra support another level of support in that classroom. They are learning the same concept, the same grade level math, the same grade level books. Nothing is different really except for the pace and maybe the focus. So for example, in some of the units, you might have to find the volume of a rectangular prism. Well, for our co-taught classes, instead of focusing on the volume of a rectangular prism with fractions, decimals, whole numbers, and we're only focusing on whole numbers because we really want those students to understand the concept of volume rather than all the computation behind it. And once they get that concept, then that course interweaves the other number systems in it, but primarily focusing on the concept first. And so we're able to flex and be more patient with our pacing in that course to give those students what they need. Since implementation of co-taught classes in the middle school, we've gone down to 5th grade and up to the high school. At the high school, we have a co-taught Algebra 1A, an Algebra 1B, and a co-taught Geometry. All of our co-taught classes at the high school are CP level. So in the process of implementing co-taught classes, we've not only raised the amount of students that typically would not have had access to a college prep level class, but we've also closed the achievement gap a little bit in our grades 4 through 8. So this slide, we're looking at our high needs percentage of students who are achieving a 3 or 4, which is met or exceeded on SBAC over the last couple of years. 17-18 is the year that I started. And you can see that we've closed the gap of students between all of our students and the high needs students since 17-18. So we're really seeing an increase both in our high needs students' ability to achieve that met or exceeded on SBAC. And when you look specifically at our special education population, we've increased the amount of students who are achieving a 3 and 4 on SBAC specifically to our special ed population. I really attain that to the success of our co-taught classes, where these students are getting more access to grade level content than they've ever seen. And they're not only getting access to it, but they're successful with it and they're feeling confident in it. We have less students needing access to a non-leveled class at the high school and more students getting access to college prep classes at the high school. And that really has a personal sentiment to me because when you take college prep classes, you have more likelihood of getting access to 4-year colleges. So some students who really haven't had access to that in the past now do, and they're being more successful on SBAC, they're being successful in our co-taught classes, and they're being able to achieve more advanced math classes than they ever have before, and being able to achieve more access to college readiness.
If I may add to Ms. Webster's work with co-teaching has really led the district, and it really has started to close that achievement gap. That achievement gap is one of the things they count on your accountability scores. So as you know, we're in the top 10 as it is. We'll be rising up that ladder, I think probably into the top 5 at some point soon in our durable of the accountability matrix. So that has a lot to do with the efforts of closing the achievement gap and actually doing some things with PE is the other item. And attendance and truancy, as I've talked about before. But that's one major component of it, and Ms. Woods did an amazing job helping close that achievement gap between our students with special services and our general ed.
I also think a lot of these results are really attributed to the way in which we've rolled out bridges in illustrative math and Desmos. We spent a lot of time investing our resources in instructional coaching with our teachers. Teachers are getting timely, data-driven support regularly throughout the year where they can ask questions, they can plan, they can look at their data with a certified person in bridges and in IM or illustrative math to really give them that timely feedback. We have built-in systems K through 8, and then we're going up to the high school this year that involves something called learning walks. And that is a teacher-driven observational visit where teachers are learning from each other. They have the opportunity to go through all different grade levels. This year, we're gonna go vertical, so previously, Birch Grove only saw Birch Grove classes, TIS only saw TIS classes. This year, they're gonna get to see each other in both buildings, and same for the middle school and high school get to see each other. And it's an opportunity to see how each other have implemented or set up their classrooms, set up their building thinking classrooms. We debrief and send out information to other staff members who were the visitees. Go with that, visitees, so that they can see and hear all the positive things that we've noticed and maybe some wonders about how we can learn more about what they're doing in their classrooms. Last year on our learning walks, we had a lot of teacher to teacher learning and growth when our 8th grade teachers saw what 6th grade was doing with building thinking classrooms, and it really changed their mindset about how they could implement that. And this year, they've really started out strong with what they've done in 8th grade math classes. So I'm really excited about that practice growing into a vertical component and including the high school. Our teachers have gotten really great feedback from each other. We also have feedback cycles in place where we have those instructional coaches that they meet with virtually and in person, come in and do a quick observation and then give a feedback loop of something that was stellar and something that they can improve upon. And that constant actionable feedback paired with timely instructional resources, timely planning, looking at data, holding teachers and students accountable for discourse is what's making our program so smooth. It's what's making our programming implemented with fidelity. And it's making our teachers feel confident. I was a middle school teacher. I'm a math certified person. I have a great mathematical mindset. I don't go to restaurants and ask people to break up the check. I also don't ask people to read me the menu because I'm not a reading person. But a lot of elementary ed teachers are not math people, or they don't feel like that way. I truly believe everyone can learn math at their own pace. And so this structured approach to teacher learning and teacher implementation and that constant support with instructional coaching has built our capacity and our confidence in our teachers. I have been in all of their classrooms and I've never seen teachers so excited to facilitate a conversation, to facilitate learning, rather than just like reading from a book and hoping kids learn how to add and subtract. So our teachers are jazzed about it and our kids are heavily engaged in the work that they're doing. And it's evidenced by our scores. And for those who went on the learning walk last year, or instructional walk at TIS, you guys saw the high level of engagement through bridges at TIS as well. You can see that both ways. At the high school, these are our 3 graduating classes of our average SAT scores. They are comparable to each other. The slight dip and back up and dip again, they're really within the range of each other. No significant difference. We are still second in our DER comparison to all of our other school districts regarding our average math SAT score. Tom Poland and I have a goal first in our DER and we're gonna do it. So we're looking at how our learning walk practices, how implementing building thinking classroom shifts in our classrooms can really support our students' reasoning and thinking and really pair with the great instructional practices our high school math department has already in place.
And our position went up in the dirt. So it might have been a little harder of a test this year or whatever, but.
So there were changes in the SAT also. Last year was the first year was fully digital and our kids really, a 6-point decline is not a significant decline in terms of the SAT. And so from going completely digital from paper and having the structure of the test change slightly, we were able to really maintain our status. Moving forward, in terms of pre-K to 5, this year we were able to really get pre-K on board. They were trained in bridges when we had the onset of implementation. And this year we're weaving them into that coaching module that I talked about. We're continuing feedback cycles and ongoing support so that we can have that fidelity and strengthening our instructional practices, particularly with our new staff, but also with our staff who's been in bridges for 3 years. we're all working to learn together. It's a new way of thinking. It's new from how I learned how to do math, and everyone's kind of learning all together. And that's why that instructional coaching is so critical in maintaining the success and even having more success than we've had currently. We're looking at integrating building thinking classrooms in terms of accountability of student discourse. We have pockets K-5 of teachers who participated in the book club last year who do have vertical spaces in their classrooms and are doing randomized grouping, looking at thin slicing assignments to support different ways of scaffolding work and kids thinking. So that's kind of scattered throughout our K-5 classrooms and really focus on data-driven differentiation. How can we support that tiered support in classrooms? What is our data telling us? What story is it telling us of our students? And how can we build tier 2 supports and strengthen our tier 1 supports within our classrooms? And the same for 6-8, looking at our algebra measures and our internal data to move that forward. In 9-12, we're starting to look at our alignment of our courses, the Common Core and to the 8 math practices. In addition to the portrait of a graduate, making sure that we're all aligned all the way through. As I mentioned, we have integration of building thinking classrooms. We'll be doing book study as a department and trying to implement Toolkit 1 and semester 2 courses. And looking at ways to embed opportunities to support the SAT and POG skills. For example, looking at how Desmos might be more utilized to balance TI 83s or 84s in the classroom so that kids have more access and more exposure to how to use an online calculator like Desmos at the high school level so that they don't lose those skills going into 11th grade to take the SAT. And looking at long-term planning for intervention, we currently don't have tier 3 intervention at the high school. We have co-teaching all the way through geometry and looking at the needs of our students and what kids are coming in. Possibilities for tier 3 instruction and needing an interventionist might help us with those bridge courses that we have a tremendous need for currently. If we were able to provide tier 3 intervention, we may be able to have more consistency in the curriculum and not need so many bridge courses, but it's a question up in the air. We are able to support that at the high school in the future. And with that, I really believe that math is from everywhere. It's in everything and it's for everyone. We're all mathematicians. All of you are mathematicians. We all use math every day. Mrs. Daly Burns will tell me that we have to read. I agree. We also have to do math. So that is the math update for Tolland, and I appreciate you listening to me talk for the last 10 minutes. What questions do you have?
First, thank you, Jen. It's obvious that you have such a passion for math and for math education. I think we saw that in our walk around, and we always do when you present. So thank you very much. I love seeing the information that you provided, especially about co-teaching and the improvement in scores. My son took co-taught algebra 1 at the high school, and I thought it was a phenomenal class. The teachers were great. He's someone who's never been comfortable in math, and he really got what he needed in that course and a lot of support. I'm assuming that maybe when you talk about tier 3, maybe you're talking about this too, but I would love to see that. Like, I'm a little disappointed that he won't have that opportunity for algebra 2. So is there any plans in the future to extend co-teaching anymore?
Have you read my agenda for my next high school touch base meeting? So I would love to see an algebra 2 class in the co-taught because that means that our typical, what they call AGA, algebra, geometry, algebra 2 pathway has that full support all the way through. And it gets kids who need that support closer to having more support in algebra 2, closer to the SAT, which is really critical. I do hope to see it on the horizon. I have an idea of how we can implement that, and it's just working with Mr. Tolland and Dr. Hess about getting that in place. But I agree with you, and I'm so glad to hear that that's your son's experience, and I do hope to see that in the future.
One thing that helps us expand that though is training. And so budgets that support the training necessary for co-teaching make it possible. So we were only able to do a certain amount of co-teaching training this year because we had to reduce the budget significantly for co-teaching. But the more of it we have, the faster we can expand it, so the more kids can get benefit.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board members?
Good question. So I think, going to the test scores, I think it's great that there's been such a big bounce back from COVID. And it's great to see that improvements considering how, devastating the effect was. But in regard to the other, I think it's 30% or so that are at a 1 or a 2 level, like on the SBAC. What's the plan to try to address those students' needs and also just, special ed student needs?
So strengthening our tier 2 supports in the classroom, and really providing that learning for teachers about how to use their data, both from IABs, which is at TIS, we've used them significantly. Typically, they see them once a month, and IABs and now the words for the acronym escape me. An interim assessment block.
Here we go.
Here we go.
They're
There's so
provided by the state
many.
to help build skills.
So-
You can get the people to
Yeah,
do it.
an IAB is a smaller version of an SBAC essentially, and sometimes they're offered focused ones. And at TIS and TMS, we give them frequently. So utilizing that data to focus tiered instruction and having teachers learn how to use that data effectively to plan tier 2 is what's going to help our students who are hitting a 1 and a 2, especially those students who are right on the cusp and giving them those skills that we need. What we've noticed, for example, giving IABs is roughly 30% of students, and this is actually close to the statistic for the nation, make entry errors, not exactly math errors. So given a problem where they have to answer, the answer is a numerator, students are putting in the correct numerator, but they're writing it as a complete fraction. And so they're not getting the credit for that. So we're finding those things within our own students by giving IABs and designing tier 2 lessons to show them key vocabulary. It says numerator, not the whole fraction. What does a numerator mean? Because believe it or not, the concept of that fractional computation, kids are getting it correctly. It's the mode in which the question is being asked that are tripping them up. That has to do with reading. So we're working pairing with Ms. Daly Burns on how to decode those questions and highlight vocabulary, but it comes down to those tier 2 supports and also strengthening our co-teaching force. Having our co-tat dyads deal with our most needy students who need the most support to hit that grade level expectation is going to be critical.
But just keeping in mind that they're not only better than their recovery from COVID, they're better than the pre-COVID scores in almost all cases. And number 2 in the dirt for SATs. So the district's really strong. But one thing to consider is when you're talking about the kids who typically are challenged at that 1 or 2 level, they're usually in need of what we call tier 2 supports. And that's when you talk about interventionists. And so when we do the budget, we have to be mindful that the number of interventionists equates to how many students we can serve in a population of like a tier 2 population. Because you'll have to take the most needy, and then wherever that cutoff is, there are some kids who are not going to get that additional assistance because you don't have any more slots or any more people to provide the intervention and tier 2 support because you don't have any more interventionists. So, we lost 9 to 11 positions last year. If you look at FTEs, some of them, across the board, we really have to make sure we're mindful that, those intervention positions and those individuals that we have and what we need to be able to serve the entire population. So co-teaching does a great job of it, because it's CP kids and we get them in, but we need to maintain our tier 2 interventions and our intervention staff. And so sometimes some people will look at the class size and say, well, look, that's real high. Why don't we just throw an interventionist in there and lower it? If you do, what happens there is then another chunk of kids cannot be served in the tier 1 and 2 or in the tier 2 population because that person moved out of there. And those are the people who are providing a lot of that support for the kids that are struggling. But despite all of that, again, keep in mind that these scores are better than pre-COVID score. They're a rebound from COVID, but they're even better than the pre-COVID scores. So we're continuing on an upward trajectory, and these kinds of scores are putting us in the top 10 and even higher than that in our group.
I'd like to add one of our positions that we lost of those 9 positions was our internal instructional coach. So that ability to build our internal capacity, so that we don't have to rely on outside consultants, which is also a budgetary thought. we lost that opportunity with the budget cut of that, with that instructional coach. So the more internal capacity we can build, we have more access to that person. Because when we go to outside consultants, we're limited by their schedule sometimes. I'm limited by our PD schedule and then working together. So anytime we can build that internal capacity, we save tenfold in the future. But we currently don't have that position. It was cut from the budget last year.
And just one other added thing is you'll notice Ms. Webster has provided and really set for the scaffolding for massive amounts of training for our staff, whether it's bridges or co-teaching or other initiatives in many here. If we lose staff at our lowest levels, which is usually the people that will go when we have budget reductions, the cuts, those people were the people we just trained. And we lose all that training with them. So we're just keeping that in mind when we get into, budget season, that, these are very important things to consider when we're asking about scores that are higher than they were pre-COVID and rebounding greatly from COVID and, number 2 in the DERG for SATs. If we want them to go higher, we got to make the investments and protect the investments of those people.
No, I appreciate the background on that, and of course, yeah, that's always good context to have on the budget decision where, we'll have to look at that and all the different factors, of course, that are in play when we make those decisions. I also just wanted to add, I really like that idea, of the students telling me, working together to try to solve the problems on the board. I think that's a great thing because I was just thinking back to my own experiences learning math, especially I think that often you'll find in like textbooks or just general instructional materials, the way math is explained is often very abstract and not clear, especially if you don't already understand the concept. So that idea of having students explain it themselves, it really helps them think through the problem and really kind of get it written into their own work. So I
It was a regular task with us at a non-permanent vertical space one day.
Good instruction around.
Just have fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, that's all.
Well, I have a question because it kind of ties into what's next on our agenda with the TEA contracts. Like you were saying with the limited PD days, can you just kind of walk through what you do for like the teaching support and time, the planning, reviewing and training? Like I know you put out a lot of that, but given that you have the limited PD days, because I've definitely learned a lot going through negotiation piece. If you could maybe just kind of touch upon how you use that for math and then, just around.
So it's slightly different now that we had the mass onboarding of majority of staff. But as we get new staff, every staff member who teaches bridges or will teach bridges gets a 2-day, essentially 12.5 hours of a combination of self-study and Zoom meeting through the Bridges company. And it's they call it the Getting Started Workshop. And it basically gives you all of the basic foundational skills of how to navigate bridges and how the premise of teaching bridges and all of its components play. They also get some additional support and planning. There are a tremendous amount of cards, dice, tools that need to kind of be divvied out and planned as you think through a number corner, workspaces, your investigations, and all of the components of it. We share time across all of the needs of the district. And so sometimes I might get an ER day where I'm able to give each grade level an hour virtually with our outside consultants, and this is just for bridges at this point, a little different each section. So we share that time where each grade level might get an hour virtually with our outside consultant for bridges and where we might focus on a particular thing. As we started bridges, that focus was around unit overviews and building our understanding and capacity of what that unit entails. What's the end result? What are the main tools and strategies that we want kids to get there? You mentioned earlier, textbooks are a little bland. Not bridges. It's very hands-on. And so when we all learned in that traditional way and our teachers learned in a traditional way, they had to learn all these new things that is not their typical norm. Since we've gotten through almost all of those unit overviews, that hour chunking is now focused on our theme of the year. So this year, our theme is looking at our data to devise tier 2 instruction and holding students accountable for discourse. So I was able to have a 1 ER day this year to talk about that with our consultants. We had all of the grade bands together virtually. In person is really a preference, but that is a budget restriction and it's a time restriction because everyone's in different places. I also utilize coverage to be able to accommodate learning walks and feedback cycles. So that I don't overtake other, I may have to balance all the priorities of professional development throughout the school year. We look at curriculum writing primarily outside of the day because there's, as you mentioned, a limitation on what's available. 6-8 is similar. We have virtual time, we have in-person time, but it's mainly through coverage of teachers out of the classrooms, which is not a preference. It's not what I would love to do, but with the limited time that we have, we try and get the most bang for our buck, and we really focus on unit overviews, instructional shifts. And at the middle school, we're talking about problems of practice. So as we're all learning something new, and we're all taking a risk, what's not working great? Oh, it's working good for you. And we talk about the strategies and tools that we use in our own classrooms that make it functional, or maybe it's not working so well. And we brainstorm different ways that we can support each other with the help of our instructional coach. She also brings expertise with illustrative math and Desmos to be able to support not just our instructional practices, but the content embedded in it. Again, the way that those things are presented are much different from how we all learned, even our middle school teachers. 8th grade solving equations with hanger diagrams, something I never saw until I saw I am either. So being a balance between sharing early release days, staff meeting time, data team time, and coverage throughout the day.
Would you feel that more early release days would be helpful?
More early release days would be very helpful, especially an hour is not enough time. On days when I get like 1 or early release day, something like that, 2 throughout the year, each grade only gets an hour. By the time they transition out and then use the restroom, it's really like 45 minutes of time, and it's really not enough. If we could have more early release days to really target and give the time warranted for those teachers to have in-depth conversations around what their needs are and what their students' needs are to make an actionable plan together, they'd be really benefit from it, particularly K-5. K-5 doesn't have a lot of common time. Dr. Willett spoke earlier about the middle school. They have team time. They also have kind of pseudo department time where the 2 math teachers at the grade level can meet together, 2 ELA teachers meet together. K-5 does not have that time. If they have time together, it's often split between half a grade level at a time and the other half the grade time. They never always get to be together. It's very challenging for our K-5 teachers to have any common time altogether due to the schedule or time during on the PD schedule. So more ER time and would be very helpful in terms of giving everyone what they need.
It's one of our biggest challenges.
Well, like I said, I know that the TA contract is on, and that was definitely something that came up a lot during the negotiation.
Recognize is very hands-on.
So just
I
kind
should
of.
have brought everyone references. Next time I'll bring everyone present.
Go ahead.
Had a few questions. Thank you for giving this presentation. I certainly feel comfortable with K through 8. My questions are always going to be at the high school, so I'm just gonna try to go in age order. I'm just curious, how is the transition now from 8th grade to 9th? So I know that a couple of years ago, kids were taking Algebra 1 in 8th, and then that kind of got bumped back, and they were taking Algebra 1 not until 9th grade. What's this kind of more of the standard these days?
Since I've been here, we've offered a variation of Algebra 1 for the last, I want to say since 1819. We've aligned our 8th grade Algebra 1A class exactly to the high school Algebra 1A class. So if you take 1A in 8th grade, it's exactly the same as 1A at the high school. We often offer an Algebra 1AB class in 8th grade, which is identical to taking Algebra 1A and Algebra 1B at the high school. We can't confirm that class is offered every single year because it's really based on student need. Same with the number of sections of algebra. I really have a hard time putting kids in classes to fill a section. I think that's not doing right by kids, and it's not giving what they need when they need it. And I really live by that when we talk about levels of math, particularly in middle school when kids change. Middle school is a dicey place sometimes. So, giving kids what they need when they need it is really, really critical. And so often we don't have students to fill a section, so we don't often have that AB class. Or if we only have enough students for a section of A, we won't force 2 sections just to fill a course. We really try and do right by kids and make judgments based on what they need when they need it.
And by dices, you mean there's a lot of development.
There's a lot of development, sorry, my vernacular.
Children at the adolescent level.
They vary differently, they vary greatly
I like
every
dicey.
year. Dicey, you know, they vary greatly depending on the day, hour, and year. And they change, they really do. Sometimes students are not ready for an advanced class. The speed, the content, the holding them accountable for something that's beyond their developmental age is very challenging when you're a 6th grader. Sometimes you're ready and sometimes you're not, and that's okay. Because we don't stymie students from taking an advanced class at the middle school. We've intentionally built our curriculum at the middle school to create like a safety net, so to speak. So if you're not ready for it in 6th grade, you can totally take in pre-algebra. And we've seen kids make that jump, so to speak, from a grade level course to an advanced course and holding on to that success. Typically, students who go grade level 7, grade level 8, I'm sorry, skipped a grade level 6, grade level 7, grade level 8, have a longer hold on advanced courses without dropping a level at the high school, because they've created more of a strong foundation of middle school without jumping around. For those small, it's about, I think last year was 4 kids. The year before might have been 3 kids. We have a very small grouping of kids who really jump levels at the middle school every year. And I look at their data all the way through, they are holding on. They're maintaining their pathway of advanced courses at the high school, and successfully completing them. So that safety net that we build in our curriculum to make sure everyone has what they need to be successful is supporting them along the way. And we're giving them what they need when they need it, which is really better than diminishing their mathematical mindset and their confidence by giving it too early.
So I remember one of the concerns I had, this would have been right before COVID hit when we last spoke about this, was if we're having, say, more freshmen start with Algebra 1A, where I know my older son, most of his class went right to geometry. How are we doing with staffing? Because now we're gonna have a lot more Algebra 1A, a lot more Algebra 1Bs than we might have had in the past. So how are we doing with being able to make sure we staff so that the kids, when they do move to the high school, they're in the math class that they should be, but we don't have any issues.
So I would have to look at that historic data to see how many sections of things that we've had, because from my memory, we're pretty consistent about how many geometry classes are offered in terms of incoming 9th graders. But we do have a staffing issue. We lost 2 math teachers, or 2.5 really, because we lost our instructional coach. So our math classes are nearing capacity at the high school. And we have had an influx of kids needing, not an influx of kids needing 1A, but when we lose teachers who typically taught the 1A classes, other teachers who teach advanced courses have to now teach a 1A class to pick up the sections that we lost. It's the reality of what happens when we lose 2.5 teachers. That's, 6 sections a year. That's really 10 sections because it was 2.5 people. So it's a lot of sections of courses to lose when we lost 2.5 math teachers in the district. So we not only lost all those sections to support kids, but we also lost our instructional coach, which was supporting 6-12 and building her capacity to support co-teaching and support our K-5 initiatives as well. So it does impact your class sizes. You'll see an increase of class size at the high school. You'll see our 1A classes at capacity. You'll see our 1B classes at capacity. You'll see CP geometry at capacity. And when based on the contract within that confines of our teacher contract, when we're at capacity, we have to create another section to meet those kids' needs. And where does that section come from? Maybe an advanced course. Maybe we can't offer something like that in that semester.
Okay, that kind of leads into a later question. Actually, Dr. Willett, maybe we could touch on this later. I don't know if any of it, I didn't realize we lost 2.5 math teachers. I thought we lost the one that we had just added.
Yeah, no, we'd have to go back to what our reductions were, but I think she's talking about the coach.
We lost our instructional
Yeah.
coach who was teaching halftime.
That was the one that we just
We lost,
lost in the last budget, correct?
Yeah.
and we lost our math lead teacher who was teaching within the department.
He was a special education slash, yeah. So it's all quantified in our documentation from the process.
All right, I just was curious because that kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next question is, we're talking about co-teaching, and I think it was Jen who was saying she'd like in algebra 2 potential to be co-taught. So until that happens, are the bridge classes available to any and all students who want them? Because I do feel like that was always a very good transition between algebra 1, geometry, intermediate math, algebra 2, elementary functions, pre-calc. So are those still being promoted to all? Because I think I've said this, I've broken record for 4 years. I personally think it's important for our students to take math every semester without a doubt. And my children have not been happy the few times they wanted to take something else, and I said no. So I'm just was wondering too, are we kind of making sure until the co-teaching model can be implemented in the higher grades, are we promoting those bridge classes?
So I 100% agree with you. Continuity with math learning is critical. Going months without math instruction and picking up an algebra 2 class is very challenging, even for our most advanced learners, very challenging. I can and cannot answer your question. Part of your question is a scheduling question that is outside the realm of my control. Are bridge classes offered to all students? Yes. Do we need to prioritize our students of most need? Yes. Sometimes students who are at grade level or just above grade level, but want continuity in their math instruction, don't take priority over our students who are most struggling learners. And when we have limited sections of a bridge course, because we're down sections of teachers, we have to prioritize the students of most need. Are they offered to all? Yes. Do we have limited sections? Yes. Do we need to make sure our most needy students are getting the support that they need? Yes. Is continuity of math really important? Yes.
The other three is, a few years ago, there was a study and they put out a survey to the community and parent guardians. I think it was done by CREC. And the vast majority supported the semesterized schedule versus the schedule that they were considering at the time. So that was one of the reasons why you still got a semesterized schedule at the high schools, because, that was almost unanimously supported, which I was surprised by at the time. Was that before you, Jim?
That was my first year here.
First year. So, the advantage I think that they were looking at the time was that you can get more courses on a transcript, because you have more opportunities to take those courses with a 32 credit. You can get up to 32 credits here, which is not always the case in other places. And you have the opportunity to take more of those courses because you could feasibly take more semester of them, and some people are locked into one course a year. So part of that was why people liked it. I think Ms. Webster and I and others, Mr. Ballman, have been looking at that high school schedule, like, we'd like to give another shot at, reworking it a bit in the future to take care of some of the things we're talking about. But it had, surprisingly, it was very well supported the last time we went out and asked everyone about it, which I didn't expect. I thought that wouldn't be the case.
Well, can I just add to your, you specifically asked, so my son is currently in integrated math, there's 26 students in the class, and on parents' night, the teacher said, we're maxed out here, and he's lucky if he needs time at the end of class, because obviously these are children who need additional help, and he's lucky if he can make it around the room and see every child once. So my son luckily we have the availability and flexibility that he stays after once to twice a week, but that class is at capacity as well.
And it has to do with how many staff we have. Again, it all goes back to offering the bridge courses, things like that. Those are people. They're all people, in sections. So.
Okay. So you were talking about how we probably have had to take away some sections, because I was very surprised to learn for the current seniors there was only one calculus class and two prop stat classes. So my understanding from talking to the guidance counselor, there was always two calcs and at least three prop sets. So my concern is, are our seniors, when they get past algebra 2 or pre-calc, are they just giving up on math? Are they not interested in taking math? Because I find that a lot of people that I've talked to who have seniors, once they hit algebra 2, they're done. And I feel like, did something along the way not work? And that's why our seniors are done. So I'm concerned about that, because I think, especially depending on your path post high school, I don't know if giving up math your senior year is the right answer. So again, that was just kind of a concern I had with my own son, because he's taking both of those classes, and man, it was tough to get his schedule to work because there was one calculus section. So
So I guess the part I almost want to say, what grade are you guys in?
11.
So are you tapped out of it? No, I'm just kidding.
on the spot.
Just kidding. So the first part is, I'd have to by the 12th graders. I don't know if they sign up for math, or if they're signing up for math and then not able to take the class because of the schedule. If there's only one section of it, off the top of my head, I don't know how many kids are in it. If there's 10 kids in it, then we don't need 2 sections because it's only 10 kids. Is it the level of interest? Is it that those are the kids who wanted to or needed or feel like they should go forward? Part of that is a culture and climate idea of having a math mindset with students, or them feeling like they're done, or maybe they're just, I don't know what their choices were.
We
It's
usually, we
students.
create the number of sections based on the interest.
Mhm.
What you're saying is maybe the interest.
The interest is
right?
waning, that's what it
So,
sounds like.
But we don't know, we'd have to look at
I'd
that.
have to
I mean, those kind of data, those kinds of numbers fluctuate with the year. So we'd have to look at it historically, but we do create the sections based on the number of kids who typically want this section. And then how many did that.
On the scheduling piece, I again don't have control over. If there is one section, because the semester is scheduled, sometimes a singleton, there are conflicts because of singleton classes. That is something out of my control.
I was just, like I said, I was surprised when they said that there were so few sections available to try to make his schedule work. I was like, wow, that's a lot less sections than I would say 6 years ago when my daughter was a senior. So,
I'd have to look at that history to see that. I don't know.
all right, my very final
No
question
problem.
is, have you looked at, and this might be a question also when we were talking about AP, bringing AP pre-calc to Tolland High School? Because they've been telling me, I still makes me cringe a little bit that I've been hearing this for 6 years, that CP pre-calc is a college level class, and it's the hardest college level class at Tolland High School. Let's make it an AP class, and then kids can get AP credit.
We certainly have classes that are at a higher level and more rigorous than CP pre-calc. I will say that we have a committee of high school teachers and myself this year looking at courses that might be able to make our department more robust. One of them is the AP pre-calc class. We're also looking at other options that might be, for example, like a geometry application course instead of a non-level geometry class, where we learn about how geometry is in architecture and construction and more real life application skills for our, it's not limited to non-level classes, but in hopes to have a more open pathway for all students to feel like they have access and accessible to math in the real world. Looking at discrete mathematics, looking at actuarial sciences, and looking at a variety of courses that might improve our options and increase our options at the high school in terms of our math courses. I don't know what that committee is going to come out with, but we are looking at it this year. And we're looking at all of those things. If we were to, for example, implement an AP pre-calc, what does that mean in terms of what courses are the prerequisite for that, and how does that impact our current curriculum? Is our current curriculum gonna be enough to prepare someone for that AP pre-cal class? What course does it take its place of? Does it take its place of? There's a lot of different details that that committee of people are looking at to make a recommendation for courses to edit or revise, add courses, which I'm sure you'll hear about in the future when the committee comes out with final decisions about what courses we'd like to add or create or revise.
The goal is to
Thank
have
you.
more reviews.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing until this year.
It's
It
brand
just-
new.
this was the
brand
first
new.
year,
This
right?
There was like I want to say a beta version, but that's maybe not the right word, but there was like a piloted group of people who tried the AP pre-calc last year, and this is like the first real go at it for some districts who adopted it.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
No problem, thank you.
Any other further questions from board members? Anyone online? Seeing none, I would like to say thank you very much
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah, one more thing, the portal where you put all the statistics on. Well, I guess that's technically.
Thanks, man.
Cause I was gonna say, why don't we go ahead and add that to the minutes, just so that people will know where to find the information,
Yeah,
portal.
I mean, at home, it's at the superintendent's page. On the left side, there's the data portal. But I'll give you the URL.
That'll be nice to have, just kind of like tie in everything.
Thank you.
Nice.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. If you need anything or have any questions, let me know.
Thank you, John.
We will move on to the TDA contract.
Okay, so as you know, I'll just do a quick lead in and then, we do have the members of the negotiating committee here too. So anything that you guys want to share, just jump in. Just give you the flyover of the kind of summary piece here. So general wage increase plus step, these are the overall percentage increases for the teacher contract for the next 3 years. You're looking at 4.35 in the first year, 3.67 and 4.08. Now remember that, that spans out over all the steps and all the staff and the positions. So that is with respect to what is the average in the state, falling right about in with what the average settlements are in the state right now. Tolland's 3-year GWI plus step is 12.1%. The state teacher settlements through August, which is about 60 districts, and that was the most recent data I could get, was 12.08%. So a difference of 0.02%, which is really nothing. So this is falling right in average with all the other settlements in the state as of August. So it's not, crazy or outside of the realm of, of what you'd expect or what's reasonable for the unit. Some of the highlights. Decreased number of staff meetings, which means more time, for teachers to focus on kids. Increased number of prep minutes. We did increase the prep minutes to 250 across the whole district, which gives them more time to be able to, to plan appropriately and do the things that you need to do to provide the tier 1 and supports that we were talking about just a while ago. Clarified definition of 6th year, because it was a very loose definition of that step and what it takes to achieve that step. So we clarified that in language to make it much more compatible with what's out there for programs right now, because various programs have different kinds of credit. You could get a certificate with, this amount of credits at one school and another amount of credits at another school. So we standardized that and made it more applicable to what the teachers were doing. Summer workday for teachers, one of the problems when we have to move teachers around to another classroom, they have almost zero time. They walk in and, school, they have 3 days of PD, but they don't really have a lot of time to move all their materials. And there's a lot of expectations of teachers. in the beginning of the year. So if we have to move them from one building to the other, or we have to move them from one side of a building to another, we need to give them time to do that. So this provides a day to come and do that if they're one of the people that has to make that move. And as you can imagine, you know, it's kind of like moving everything out of one room in your house and moving it into another. You need the time to do that. You can't come in and it's to be expected to do all the PD, start teaching without having a little time. Specialized tutoring compensation, we clarified language on that, because we have homebound tutors and other tutors and, you know, school tutors and hospitalization tutors, and there was a lot of different things that were done in the district, so we standardized that under one type. And that was for really housekeeping and organizational purposes, and also to make sure that we, you know, were competitive in the market, so people would want to do that. Employment year, PD days, as you heard, we don't have enough PD days, so what we did was we went to 180 days of instruction, and now we have 8 days of teacher work outside of that, which means we can add an additional 2 days in the beginning of the year, which we crucially needed because we don't have the time. So now we have more time that we're going to be able to utilize for teacher training in the beginning of the year and right into, you know, October. And that's very important for us. So that's going to help with some of that. Life insurance coverage changes favorable mostly to the BOE. Elimination of the PPO plan, which is important. And now the only plan that exists at all is the HDHP, which is the high deductible health plan, which is industry standard now. And so that was important. Course reimbursement allocation, that was important to the teachers. They wanted that. And so that went up from 22 to 30. And as you know, we talked about that in the budget. You can, you know, we have to have that amount in the budget as per contract, but you've also seen how it can fluctuate massively in terms of what we pay out, depending on how many people are doing it, what step they jump up to when they complete that type of thing. The union president wanted to be able to attend a workshop, so that's in there now. That's a good thing to trade away if you're looking for, you know, a reasonable percentage and so on. So the other piece of this is as far as TDA negotiations are concerned, the other negotiations we don't always have the attorney present, but in this case, we did have our attorney present for the negotiations, or most of them with the TDA, because the TDA is a extremely large unit with a lot of resources, and they usually send their a rep or a Uniserv rep that has you know, that is their negotiator. So we usually will have on our side someone from Shipping a Good One that, you know, can balance that. So having said that, this is a general flyover of it. Do you guys want to? Jen Couch, share.
I'll just say, I mean, this is the first read, so I'll keep it short, but, you know, as you recall, we had, we negotiated a 1-year agreement, last time. So this is really our first significant teacher contract since COVID. The negotiations were lengthy. They came in with a lot, which we expected, again, given that we did a 1-year contract last time. This did go to mediation. That meeting went till midnight. So discussions were long, discussions were intense. And as Ashley already mentioned, time was a huge concern and consideration for them. And they need more time with students, they need more time training, they need more time with each other. They, you know, their time is, you know, and if you've been, especially, you know, in the elementary schools, they're as Jen Webster just explained, there is no time. So, and then even if in the upper grades, I don't know if any of you guys are into your children's Gmail, but I have it set up on my app because I can't seem to separate it from my board email, but I'm getting notifications, you know, from teachers grading and doing assignments at all hours of the evening. So our teachers are taking a lot home. So they're certainly putting in a lot of time, a lot of their own time. I don't think that we should be surprised that, you know, we rose up to a state level. I'm happy to see our teacher settlements at the state level. Trying to look at everything on there. Ashley, do you have anything that you want to add?
I think you definitely hit the nail on the head that negotiations were very intense and very long. The mediation, I think we really did have to enter into it because there was, very wide range of issues that we had to deal with that we were not necessarily seeing, things in the middle. And so I think that that really did help us, move forward. I'm glad it was an arbitration because then that's even more expensive, but the mediator, he actually, I think, did a fantastic job. It was a lot of, him running into our room, running back into their room. Thankfully, Steve fed us that night. And, so it just was, it was intense. It really was, but I do feel as though that, going through everything, like we just to clarify too, the union president workshop, I mean, it's only her that has the allotted days that she was looking for. A lot of this stuff, it was the essence of looking at time. They did not feel as though, and we can't sit there and say, okay, well, we'll allot you some more PD days when that's a board decision. So it was a lot of trying to figure out how we can try to get them the time that they need to review the students, and they just felt as though, like, whether it's with each other, with the students, with reviewing the goals, with, you know, the training, it was really essentially time. That's all that they were really trying to get to. When it comes to the wages, and we were looking at like where we are, it's hard to compare because I know some people are saying like attitude for gratitude, but like that's like our higher end that we are very comparable on like if you have your master's degree, if you have stuff, but if you're just starting out as a teacher, you come here and then you look at another district where you're like, well, I can make another 20,000 just going right next door. That's a problem with retention to keep people here. So, you know, we do have to try to maintain, we have to try to find a way to get our teachers in and have them stay because our districts all around us are definitely starting at a much higher rate than we are. And so that was definitely something that came up in this whole negotiations piece as well. So I think that's really all that I can.
It's tough because, you know, negotiations are confidential, but we know that, you know, you guys all care about staff and especially negotiations like this. I wish we could be more specific with all of you about everything that's discussed, but, you know, I think that we worked really hard to find a common ground that made sense for us and our budget restrictions, but also, you know, we made sure our teachers felt like they were being paid competitively and that they were valued. And those were really important sentiments this round. So again, I know that you all care very much. I wish we could tell you so much more. But I think even though it went to mediation, it was handled well and everybody left the rooms feeling like we accomplished something. So.
I just have two questions. Well, first off, I was on the negotiations committee for that first year, so I know what you guys went through and it's tough. It's not easy. It's tough. So thank you for doing that. I kind of had two random questions. Now, I will say though, and honestly, I feel like this is all pretty fair. You know, I don't really have a problem with any of that. I'm just more curious. My first question is the extra 2 teacher PD days. Are we front loading them or are they going to be? It's not going to be, my concern is this, it's not going to be all 5 that week before Labor Day, which is then going to automatically bump us to not be able to start school until after Labor Day, will it?
No.
The two will have
And the
to go
way
the
the
week
contract
before.
works, that we can start it early enough that that's not.
Okay, all right, I just want to make sure, because I know that was an issue. Somewhere along the way, I think the contract said like they can't do more than 3 and they have to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but okay. And it's my final time as finance chair. Do you have, what is the number for year 1 of because we're gonna, you know, it's gonna be a thing. We're gonna talk about the budget increase, but stuff that are contractual. So I just kind of wanna let's just rip the Band-Aid off now and get that number out there so we can kind of,
So year one will be 730,327. Year two is 642,410. And then year three is 740,718.
thank you.
And I think it's really great that you asked that question, because I think come budget time, we see these big numbers and it's like, wow. But then, like you said, when we look at what it actually means, what else can we do? We have to pay them at a fair level. We have to, try to be as close to that state average as we can. And like Ashley said, we are, and like you saw when you were there is that balance where we have higher step teachers maybe at that higher end and our lower teachers are at that low end. And as we've seen, we've had a lot of turnover in the last couple of years. I mean, I was in the school today and in TIS today, and we've had a lot of movement there, even just from the beginning of the year, right? So we're bringing in new teachers at lower steps, and we want to bring in great teachers at lower steps, and we want to keep them.
One of our adjustments here was the elimination of the bottom two steps, which was important for us because we were losing a lot of staff to people that paid more at the lowest steps. The teachers, we could not, we were looking for teachers and they had a very competitive market. So, we just lost another, we're potentially losing another one today that is going to a town nearby that's paying $15,000 more to that teacher at that same step. And so we were experiencing a lot of that in this contract. And so about 165 of that is getting those two bottom steps eliminated. So we're not losing teachers to other districts. The other piece is keep in mind that in our county, the current position of Tolland compensation for teachers was out of 15, we're 10th. So even with this contract on we're doing a basically average increase for the 60 districts. We're falling right in with them. We may pop up a little bit, but it's not out of the range of like our DIRG. We're 10th, lowest in that DIRG of 15 right now before the contract. Who I won't know for a year until after, but we're getting an average. It's falling in the average settlement, so we're not probably leaping up there. And so that's just something to keep in mind, that this is a very reasonable contract for Tolland, despite the sticker shock. And it's not pushing us, into some high spectrum of compensation. It does achieve knocking off those two low steps, so we don't have such a transition of teachers at our earliest ranks, lowest years. Accomplishes a lot for the town. The negotiating team did a really, really good job. One thing I will say is the hard part about where we're at is this kind of dovetails into your next agenda item. So, the new people take their office the Tuesday following the election. You have one more board meeting. You're not going to have a second read unless you have a meeting November 8th. So you'd either pass it tonight, or you maybe want to consider that meeting to have a second read. Otherwise, you're going to have the first read, and then the new board wouldn't meet till later in November and would actually have another first read, because some of you will not be here.
The contract would be retroactive.
Oh, well, it's next year. We're in a year,
Okay.
so it starts next year, but I'm just, saying it would be two different boards.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely comfortable with reviewing this and doing a vote, and everyone feels comfortable moving into board action tonight. Because, we are here, we have an understanding to go forward with it. That's up to, because I'm not thinking November 8th. This was told this was my last meeting, so therefore this is my last meeting.
So in that regard, I would be comfortable as well, as long as all the information that we would receive is that. And so that's it in terms of information that we would get, if that's the case, the information I've read, I'd be comfortable voting tonight. So I just want to clarify.
Well, you also have the red line, which doesn't become public until after the board approves it. But that's been posted to you for
Well,
a few days.
right.
I mean, I usually save my defining roles until the second read, but I don't know that I have to define the roles of the teacher to the board. So, you know, obviously I can be comfortable with it. I went through the process. So, I mean, it's really up to you guys. I do think it would, I do think, you know, respectfully, it would be nice if this board got to finish this out. But at the same time, if you're not comfortable, we can do it again.
I'm fine. I actually read the red line version for once in anticipation that we were gonna vote. I read it in advance just in case.
You like the red those?
Yeah, I'm comfortable voting tonight.
Oh, I have mixed feelings. I won't hold it up if people want to go in that direction, you know, but. It's always,
Voting on it again anyway.
yeah, but. I did have a question though for the negotiations committee. So we have the salary numbers. I know there were a couple other changes in there, like with life insurance and then the elimination of the PPO plan. Just from a financial perspective, does any of that have like a significant impact that the board should be aware of? Or is it?
Most of it is in our favor. With life insurance, we grandfathered a larger payout to a smaller payout. That's good for retirees and for PPO, the PPO is a much more costly plan for the district, and now we have only HDHP.
Yeah.
So it was in a process of coming, and both of those changes are good changes, favorable to us.
Yeah, well, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, as far as the salaries go, I know it's a competitive market, so you gotta move it up then. 0.02% more than the state average is not really something I'm gonna care about, so. Yeah, otherwise it's good. I'm almost kind of, well, this come along the wrong way, but I'm almost a little glad it went to mediation, because given all the issues in play, I think it was good that it went that extra step just to really get things all figured out, so I appreciate the work that the committee did to, come up with the contract, so.
I mean, there was just so much
Yeah.
on the table that it really couldn't be accomplished in that window of time that we have before that next step. I am glad that, I mean, unless something changes in a few minutes, I am glad that it didn't go to arbitration.
Yeah.
Obviously, we try to keep that
Yeah,
and the legal fees that come along with those things.
yeah, yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say is if it was just, without that was in play, if it was just like, sure. That would not be great, but you know, it sounds like due diligence was done, which is good.
I just wanted to say that it all looks very reasonable, what, you know, the changes, and I appreciate all the work that went into it. I'm comfortable going forward. I wish we could have given teachers more.
Okay,
Yeah,
Well-
move to action.
yes, I'm gonna entertain a motion. Would you just, right, right. Okay, I will entertain a motion if anybody would like to make one for,
Is it up there?
moving it to, no, but you have to move it down to board action, so it'll be L1.
Motion to move the TEA contract to board action L1.
Okay, any further discussion about that? If not, we will, go ahead and do the roll call vote, so David.
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Aye.
Nay.
Dana?
Aye.
Aye.
We will be moving, and I'm an aye as well, we'll be moving this to, L1 for a vote, on the TEA contract. Okay, the possible cancellation of the November 8th meeting is up for discussion.
So that's what I referred to before. If, right now, you have the opportunity, if you wish, to hold a November 8th meeting. It will be one day after the elections. So some of you, will, the term is lame ducks, but you're not really. You're wonderful people. And it's just a term. So, you have this kind of weird situation where your meeting is after the election. So if if you're gonna pass that one, then there really isn't too much business that you'd be able to take up that wouldn't need to be taken up again by the newly elected board. So there's a good reason to not do it if you don't want to.
Go ahead.
So I have no problem canceling the meeting, but my one question is, and I have no idea if this is even possible to do, but like, is there any way you could schedule a meeting for the new board that isn't all the way at the 29th? I have no idea if that's allowed, but
Yeah, it
that's a long time to go without.
That could be a special. When, yeah, the way it all fell in the meetings and how the Tuesday thereafter and all that. It just was the next available time, because there's gonna be time needed to get everybody up to speed. I'll be trying to pull in people for meetings before that, just to get everybody aligned. So that first meeting, as you remember, is the meeting where you select
Yeah, that's,
chair and your co-chair and then all that. So we have to align a lot of stuff to make that all.
yeah, there's just a frustrating thing about it, because it's kind of like you don't have a board for a month.
Yeah, and
Here's the
holiday.
deal, though. If something,
Mhm.
you know, some couple of these issues might bubble up and we might have to call a special meeting, so we're not technically really done, but if we need to do that, we'll still be able to take care of certain things,
But also 14,
but only until the 14th.
yeah.
So from the 15th to the 29th, there's no set board. So
Well,
is
and
very
that's
interesting.
actually not crazy, because you do every 2 weeks, but in between that time, you also have Thanksgiving. You have like, it's just a messy month from that point, you know, that. And normally you'd have November 8th, and then 2 weeks later, or week and a half during Thanksgiving.
2 weeks anyway.
So it's usually 2 weeks anyway, but in this case, it just. Yeah, it's tough, but we will be using the time to get everybody in alignment and pull in, you know. Give everybody a little onboarding, so when we walk into that first meeting, everybody knows how it's gonna go.
It's just one quick point, maybe you can put in your notes, Dr. Will, when the calendar item is on the agenda for
Right.
next year.
Watch the election. I definitely will.
Yeah,
And like I said, there are a couple things going on, so if we have to have a full meeting, then we're gonna have to, but I'm hoping that everything is okay and, we don't have to have a meeting, so. That's where I'm at. I'm good with this being my password. Floor?
What does that mean, bring everybody into alignment?
That means
Like
that,
picking officers before there's a board?
no, it means, letting everybody know what the process is, so that when we're in the first meeting, nobody's wondering what the process is.
How the votes go.
It means so
Okay.
everyone is in alignment and understands what the process is going to be and all of that.
And that's gonna be everybody together or one-on-one?
Well, right now, if we're gonna have a meeting with everybody together, it would have to be a public meeting. We don't know who's gonna be elected and who isn't. When people are elected, I'm gonna reach out to them and give them information, and then when we come in together, they get to make the choices.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and entertain, proposed motion, yes. We gotta move this to L2. To cancel the November 8th meeting. If anybody would like to make that motion,
Jacob Mari, I move to move item I3 to board action,
L2,
or how is it?
because the TEA.
Ours, L2.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, let's go ahead and do the roll call vote. So Jada?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Lord?
Aye.
Aye as well, therefore we'll be moving this to board action for L2. Okay. Transportation contract.
Well, not contract.
Oh, no, update, sorry. I just, TA contract, everything's just a much.
So, in order to, gather what I needed to gather, this was something you have access to now, but this wasn't in the packet. I needed until this week. So, as you know, we rolled out First View, and I just wanted to give you an update, and people that asked kind of for an update of how things are going. First View seems to have been a game changer in terms of people and what they're reaching out about. 557 users joined it. And if you think about it, that I just launched it, we fell within the schedule of when I said we would launch it. And there was a lot of work to get that to happen. Got it to happen, and there's a lot of work to manage it, frankly. But it works quite well, in my opinion, and I think people are really liking it. I don't think people have as many questions about where the bus is right now. There are certain things we're trying to tweak about, if they have a bus that goes to Rockville or it's going to a tech school, we have to, continue to work with the algorithms and everything to make sure that they're seeing what they need to see. But, in terms of concern calls or complaints, there weren't that many in October. From the standpoint of information or requests or communications, we had a couple of outreaches. We're working hard to help parent guardians get what they need if they want a special kind of thing to happen. If we can make it happen, they can make those requests and update their stops and all that, and we try to accommodate them. And so that's kind of what that is. On-time arrival at schools for October was 95%. On time arriving at the school. So when they run their route, do they arrive on our scheduled time that the software says if you arrive at this time, you're gonna be able to hit the route within the hour. Then they're hitting the times that were targeted 95% of the time in October, which is pretty good. I did create an entire site for parent guardians so that they would have access to training and resources with respect to how to use First View. And so there's, registration guide information, parent view, FAQ, quick start guide if you just want to ignore the whole thing and just jump right in. It has a login for the parent view login. It has numbers and resources for technical assistance. And it has a resource for, just submitting a question about your kid, about student ID. We can handle questions on student ID. The other questions generally go to the First View app, technical support, that type of thing. So I put that out, and it's been in every bulletin, and people have been using it. I've been hearing good things. It seems like it's been something that people have appreciated. So, overall, it's been a pretty good month in that, we have a lot of users signed up. We haven't had many issues. People have asked for the requests that they're asking for, we're being able to accommodate. And I think it's been a pretty successful month, considering everything. Having said that, I'm also, we talked about the data portal, I've expanded what's going to be on the data portal month to month. So the things that I'm going to be reporting out for transportation on the data portal are on-time performance. It's the arrival time of each school, the percent arriving at scheduled arrival time. And then the route completion, that's the other important number. Were they able to complete their route within that hour that they're allocated? And so these two numbers would give us the kind of bookends of on-time runs. And then First View gives the parents the exact time. So, they contractually have to get in there by the hour. We have to have them arrive at their arrival times, at a high percentage. But no, now First View lets you watch that bus go all the way, and you can set a geo boundary. So you can say, when the bus enters this geo boundary, send me a notification, so that the parent, would receive a notification just as the bus enters the geo boundary, and they don't have to sit there watching the thing the whole time. So between the bookends of the timing and the geo boundary and First View, parents, I think, are getting really, they're getting a powerful tool, and they seem to be happy with how that's going. I'm also going to be asking and reporting out on breakdowns, repairs, maintenance, how many complaints and resolutions. I obviously will redact anything that, there's something that wouldn't be, that would compromise someone. Reporting any substantive changes in routes, any accidents. I have to, be careful about this one, but, maybe how many. There's usually almost nothing. Any trainings that occurred, any miscellaneous notes, that type of thing. So all of that stuff will be on the portal. So overall, it's been a pretty good month. A very busy month to roll it all out like that, but now it's great. And I can actually monitor. Now, one of the things I put up on many monitors is I will have the buses, running as I'm working through the afternoon, and I can see, they're all arriving at the school at the reasonable time. And if I see a straggler, I can actually call for students and say, hey, I noticed bus, just gonna throw a number out there, bus 14 is straggling, is something going on? You know, I can monitor all of it as it's happening. So it's been a powerful tool. And I think we've had overall a very good month.
I'm assuming this winter, because winter brings snow and ice and all of these things. In terms of on-time performance, is this winter gonna sort of serve as a baseline, or do we already have information that can be compared to what we get this winter? If my question makes sense there. So to determine whether it's on the buses are on time or because of road conditions or
Yeah,
whatever.
that is the thing that will affect it. So for instance, 84 was shut down this afternoon. If that happens at the wrong time, lucky you, Tolland, you are actually the get off. And then they strip all the way down here and they go all the way down to exit 67 to get back on. Because you have this little Bermuda Triangle out here for some reason. So a couple of times during the year, and I honestly don't know why, but it is usually a couple of times. Something will happen here and they route them off 68. They go down your green all the way through Vernon and get back on 67 and it's locked. And that happened a week ago. And it happens, I don't know why, or all the way down to 66. When that happens, when this main thoroughfare is blocked up, anything coming off Cat Hole or whatever, they can't cross over this area as easily. And so when the buses come up and over, they get stopped in this area. So if traffic is impacted with a routing off the highway, for instance, what's going to happen is those will be later. And the advantage now is that that a parent will see that on first view and probably go, what is going on? And then realize something's happening. And that geo boundary, it'll still work because when the bus comes into the geo boundary, it'll tell them when, they're close to their bus stop. So it may be late, in a situation like that. And whenever I can, I'll put out a notification that, we're impacted. There's an accident on 84 or something like that. And snow does always slow everything down. Other things that can happen is if, for some reason, so for instance, we're gonna have on Skunkamug, there's a little tiny bridge over there. Most people don't know there's a bridge over there. That bridge will not be accessible starting in April, but it's gonna go down to one lane in January. So that's another thoroughfare and it's a connector between one side of Tolland to another side of Tolland. So when that bridge shuts down to one lane, they're gonna have to alternate traffic and that's gonna slow things down. So the buses will experience a slowdown, but again, having first view, so I'd encourage any parents who have not already signed up for it to sign up for it. You'll actually be able to see, the bus is not progressing as fast as usual. And if it's not, just usually going to be traffic related or weather related reasons, and it'll still, buzz you when it enters the geo boundary. So those things will probably affect us and slow things down. But the goal is to make sure that we're in that highest 95% or higher of arriving on time and finishing the routes on time, which should mean that people are getting home.
So I'm glad that the app's working well, but I'm a little concerned. You said it's still a lot of work to do. Are like the Tolland administrators working on the app, or is it the bus company?
Well, the bus company does the management of the app support. So if you have a problem with the app, you're not calling, you're calling them. But it requires a lot of management on my part. I create the accounts, login, and then we have IT doing some of it, but these buses and the management of the bus system is usually something that in this district, it's one of the things that I do. So the startup of it and the launching of it and the notification of parents and all of that, making sure it ran right in order to hit the timeline. It took a lot of involvement to get there, but it's a huge asset. And once we get going, I can actually send notifications out to different buses and groups of buses, so it'll improve probably the communication process.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure. I was concerned that the district is doing work that the bus company should be doing, basically my concern.
Most of it is managing the events. That's on our end.
Kids information.
And that's you, not our earlier transportation coordinator.
Yeah, but that's also the business director, multi-role. So like in a time, I'd rather get the reports, than having managed the, some of the other things. But yeah, we share it, but there's two of us. And so, if somebody calls to complain about something, that's going to him.
He gets complaints.
He
You
gets
should, yeah, I think it's fine.
I make sure these things, I make sure that if you sign up for bus 14, you're seeing bus 14. But at the same time, if somebody has an issue, they're usually going to him first. And they can escalate it to me, but that's usually what helps me, is that those things are managed before they get to me.
That's all. Glad to see that people are getting used to it.
That's nice.
Any further comments or questions? Okay. We will close out the transportation.
Dana has a-
Oh, Dana.
Sorry, delayed hand. I just wanted to say, Dr. Will, and if there's any feedback, I think it's been a great tool. It literally tells me when the bus departed, when it arrived at the school. It's real time. It's been quite helpful to locate any students. You can set it up to alert you as well. Like I said, that geofence is huge. I think obviously with any new rollout, there's going to be kinks in it, but I definitely think this is the right direction, and it's a fantastic tool. I just wanted to share that.
Anyone else at this time? Okay. We'll close out the transportation update. Committee liaison reports. I saw the policy was canceled. Communications.
It was pretty brief. We discussed, we had hoped to get the student interest pieces rolling, but we haven't been able to do so yet. So we're still working on the permissions to do that and scheduling piece. So hopefully that's something that will continue on with the communications committee. I can do a PTO update.
Sure.
The Trail of Treats was a smashing success, in their words. And they thank all that participated and attended. Staff appreciation was yesterday at TIS. The TIS book fair is currently underway. I was there today. It's fantastic. They have it in the mini gym this year, which is great. Very strange not to have it in the library, but looks great. Very accessible. It began yesterday and it runs until 11/3. They've extended the book fairs a little bit, which I also think is great. And there are still lots of spots to volunteer. The last time I looked at the form, if anyone's interested, and that is available online. The Support My School and Lyman Pie fundraiser pickup is 11/9 from 4 to 6 p.m. at Birch Grove. Please go get your pies. Frosty Fest will be held at Birch Grove on 12/2 from 11 to 1, and that is going to kick off the Birch Grove Book Fair. So stay tuned for volunteer opportunities for that. The TMS PTO are working to solidify upcoming fundraisers. They're working closely with the new principal, Melissa Hickey. They are working on a Jeff's Kettle Corn fundraiser and a discount card for local pizza restaurants. They're planning their staff appreciation event and family engagement events. So stay tuned for more information on those items. For the boosters, for Oktoberfest is Sunday, 10/29 from 3 to 7 at the Spot. It's $5 for students and $10 for adults. You can prepay. I've seen, you can Venmo. You can do a QR code, but I believe you can also pay at the door. The project graduation bottle and can drive is November 11th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the high school. And then save the date for the annual cornhole tournament, which is going to be on May 18th. Okay. Go.
The curriculum met this afternoon. We didn't have much of an update up on unstructured time activities due to some staff turnover up on the town side and other activities that they're working on. We also, though, reviewed portrait of graduate progress and a lot of work going on that front in preparation for the NEASC accreditation, which is underway right now. It's a once every 10-year process to accredit the high school. That'll culminate up in a site visit up in March to our school. So very important that that goes well. So and the POG project is a key part of it. So other than that, nothing else to report.
Can I make a plug off of that? Just that the high school's working really hard to get all parent guardians responses. And so I know that we need just 30 or 40 more to reach our goal of survey responses. Yeah, so we're gonna go for it, but hopefully right now it's 30, it's going down. So if you haven't already taken that parent guardian survey, we would love to have your feedback. And we can help us reach our goals. So thank you so much for your help, and check out that, check your email, because Mr. Tolland has sent out an email with a link to help you get that done.
Can I just ask a question? Who did the survey? Like who?
Yes,
Okay,
it's their standardized
good,
questions.
because that was, not gonna lie, probably one of the worst surveys I think I've ever taken.
Yeah,
I couldn't answer
yeah,
half the question, but there's not even not applicable.
yeah, and we don't get to see them. It's the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, Association of Secondary Schools and Colleges, so it's all in the ass.
Yeah, okay. Well,
And
I'm
they
glad
do
to
that.
hear that, because
Yeah.
at first I was like, I really hope that Mr. Poland and Dr. Willis did put this survey together.
Not ours, but we really need you to reach out and respond to those.
I did it. But I did it for me. All right, so you're doing it for me.
You know,
Do we have FFC?
Yes, we did. So we met last week and we looked at the more in-depth September numbers, and I think one of the biggest takeaways was the SROs that we might have to kind of adjust accordingly to try to get that position filled. We did briefly talk about the USIF agreement. And the current balance is over 700,000 that basically the town is kind of holding. I did quickly watch some of the town council meeting last night, and I didn't see it on their agenda, nor I only watched it for about 45 minutes, but so what we kind of talked about in FFC was unfortunately, I'm kind of punting this one to Tony and Dana as FFC committee members, and they will obviously be back next month, just to kind of keep this going as far as getting the conversation with the new town council then, so that it doesn't get kind of, brushed aside, because it's a lot of money, and I think the big question was, can we use that funds if we have a catastrophic operating expense issue? So that was kind of what we were looking for, is with the energy. And now that Tony and Dana can explain it to the new board, because I think we were saying it probably took us a good year to understand, how it works. So, and then lastly, I had just put together a calendar, and the committee just kind of went through and added anything of just things that the committee has looked at every month from January to December. If the new committee chairperson wants to use it, great. Obviously they can tweak it how they want, but I just kind of wanted it out there. So we also don't let things kind of fall aside, like the capital budget and things like that. Just make sure that whoever takes over that committee is aware of the responsibilities. That was it.
No further questions. I'm not forgetting, right? Got everything. Okay. The person's room. The final chair report for me after 4 years. Looking back on my service, I'm proud to say that I have been level, ethical, and have shown unwavering support for our school system. The job hasn't always been easy, but I have loved giving back to our community in a positive way. My only hope is that the election results yield a board looking to work together for the betterment of the schools versus following any political agendas or witch hunts. It pains me to think of how much more we could have accomplished over these last 4 years were it not for the constant distractions of personal and political attacks, all of which were proven to be a huge waste of our time and financial resources for time. While this door might be closing, I look forward to supporting our community in other ways without the burden of political influence. With that being said, let's go ahead and move to our board action. So I will entertain the TEA contract one, if you have it, do you have it on the?
Motion to approve the TEA Board of Ed 2024 to 2027 bargaining unit agreement.
Second?
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and do the roll call vote. So David?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Griffin?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
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 Dana?
Aye.
Lord?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Therefore, the contract is now approved as is. Thank you for that, because it wasn't that work. The second one, the November 8th cancellation.
Motion to cancel the November 8th, 2023 meeting of the Board of Education. Sophia Shake.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, we will go ahead and do the roll call vote, Jaden.
Aye.
Ben?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Lord?
Aye.
Aye as well. Therefore, the November 8th is now canceled. As I said, just know that in case anything does pop up, we are still going to have to move. Yeah, making eye contact. Okay. Perfect. Let's move to public participation. Do we even have? Well, we have one viewer and one on here. So, okay, we have 2-minute timer. If you almost got it. If you could list your name and address for the record, you'll have 2 minutes to speak about anything that was on the agenda tonight. And if you're in the room, that you can come and speak to the owl.
Sweet.
Yeah, that picks you up.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for what you've done this year as serving our community. It's so important to have an awesome board. And you guys have really done an amazing job in your terms, and I'll be sad to see those of you go that are leaving us. My name is Monique Mead, 31 Servants Road. My statement was actually about homecoming. It wasn't about, well, anyways, I am a professional driver. As I'm self-employed, but, I was called, this past homecoming evening to drive individuals home. And I did, or to a secondary location, I should say. They were extraordinarily intoxicated and joking about the fact that they did breathalyzers when they got there. So what's the point of not drinking while you're there? And how many of them were actively drinking at homecoming. Many of them, apparently. I was not there, so I don't know. I know that the 3 that I brought home that were heavily intoxicated. Or brought to a secondary party, I should say, it wasn't even their home. Now, I always feel like something like that is, of course, parent responsibility. But if you're doing a breathalyzer when they're walking in, why aren't you doing a breathalyzer when they're walking out? Because there's always a chance that those kids leaving that party or that dance are going to be intoxicated on their exit, not necessarily on their entrance. Thank you.
Anyone else online? Going once, and going twice, we will go ahead and close that out. Points of information at this time, any board members can speak to anything that they would like.
Yes. Real quick, I just want to take this moment to thank Dana and Sophia for their work on the policy committee this year. We have touched on some really significant and at times difficult subjects. I felt that the conversations were always fruitful and in depth. And I sincerely appreciate the honesty and the the compassion that they both brought to this conversation and the work that's done. So, personally speaking, thank you both.
Look how happy you did. That today, Tony.
It's such a great policy committee leader, really, example.
It's true.
I think we had fun. Dare I say?
Anyone else at this time? If not, I will close. Dr. Willett, did you have anything?
No, I'm just very
Okay.
disappointed to hear that about homecoming applicants with, so, you know, that's obviously something we're gonna need to look at, so thank you for bringing that.
I wouldn't have said it if I wasn't actively a part of it.
I just want to say a quick thing on homecoming. So I'm president student council. I was doing tickets that night. I didn't sit for a long time. I just got pictures and then ate with my mom. But I do know that we were checking bags on the way in. Obviously, there are ways not really alcohol. But I'll definitely bring this up to Mr. Tolland. I'll bring it up to the student council and we'll navigate in the future. That's
Awesome. I just wanted you guys aware, because it just seemed so funny to me that they were all joking about the fact that they did breathalyzers when they got there, and they all drank during the dance the whole time, and then they just, half of them drove home. And that's the scary part for me. I mean, at least the people that I drove were smart enough to call for a ride, but what about the others that weren't smart enough to call?
Yeah,
Because they didn't want to get in trouble.
Okay, anyone else at this time?
Thank you, Audrey, for
Thank you so much.
for responding to that and responsibly handling it. That's exactly what we would love a student representative to do, and you're the right person to do it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you all. At this point, I would love to entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor can say aye.
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 Perfect. So we'll adjourn at 9:06.